The Meeples and Miniatures podcast is sponsored by Two Fat Loddies, Firestorm Games, and by the generous donations of you, the listener. We want to thank everyone for their continued support. We really do appreciate it. The Meeples and Miniatures podcast, episode 273. Mind Over the Realms. With hosts Neil Shuck and Mike Hobbs, and guest Alex Ley. This show was recorded on the 26th of July, 2019. Good evening, hello, and welcome to another episode of the Meeples and Miniatures podcast. It is I, the Brummy Dwarf. It's Neil coming from a slightly cooler Leicester than yesterday, where it was hot. It was damn hot. I was watching Good Morning Vietnam clips last night, thinking how you could get away with putting that intro in. Yeah, I don't think it works at all. Never mind. I am joined this evening by one of my partners in crime and a guest who is currently wondering what on earth has he let himself in for. So first off, good evening to the Welsh wizard himself. It is Mr. Michael Hobbs. Hello, sir.
Hello, Neil. Hello, world. I think it's been quite pleasant recently. Lovely. Sunny, We've only had a little bit of rain here in Wales. The sun's been out. Although the AC did pack up in my car, which was damn inconvenient. I had to open windows. It was like being an animal, Neil.
on the 1 week of the year where you really need it.
Yeah.
And our guest for this evening is Alex Ley, who is the organiser of an event called Mind Over the Realms that occurred a couple of weeks ago. And we thought we'd invite him on to have a chat about that, amongst lots of other different bits and pieces. Alex, good evening and welcome to the show, mate.
Good evening, gents. How are we?
Hot. Damn hot.
Hot. I mean, I'm ginger. You're lucky I'm alive. So if my manager didn't text me preemptively saying don't come into the office, work from home, it's fine, because we know that for you this is literally a public health scare, this interview probably wouldn't be happening. So yeah. No, I'm. Of
course you're from London. Of course you're from London, aren't you? Which is always seems to be the hottest place in the
Essex,
UK.
But it feels like it. I mean, I'm from Essex originally. I live in Stratford, in East London, and it was crazy. It was 38 point something, just shy of Cambridge apparently. Cambridge was the one that broke the record.
Yeah,
because they have to be at the forefront of everything, don't they? So, privilege. Sorry. Yeah. Anyway, sorry, that's not the point of this podcast. Anyway, moving on.
No, but you fit it in perfectly.
I know. Just
after only 30 seconds. We like this.
Yeah. Anyway, yes, I did organise an event, and I am here to talk about it. Absolutely. So yeah.
Brilliant. I would say amongst other things, and yes, and hold on to your seats, people, because it was an Age of Sigmar event, was it not?
It was, yeah. That it was using them G-Dubs products. So yeah, my background is typically Games Workshop games. I think that's what got me into the hobby in general.
Okay, well, we'll find out all about that in a second.
Indeed.
We'll get you to introduce yourself, and before we go any further, I need to address a point of order from the rantette I had on the last show.
Which particular one?
For the person who didn't listen to the show, can you explain what that is?
Oh right, okay. Okay. I had a bit of a go. I had a bit of a go at Element Games. I wasn't very happy with them.
Okay.
It had appeared that essentially they'd done a Wayland on me, but
Oh, Wayland. You can find that in the dictionary, right?
Yeah.
I'd just like to point out that the views of Alex do not. No, actually, they are probably quite similar to ours. So there we go.
Yeah. Right. Anyway,
I'm pretty certain I'm still owed a Furiosa Dreadnought from about 5 years ago. But anyway, I digress. So.
I thought I was in the same boat because I'd ordered a product which I thought they had in stock, and I knew for a fact the only reason I ordered from them was because that product was now out of print, and then it appeared that. I actually, after I record on the day after I recorded the thing saying, I wonder what's going to happen there. I did actually get an email from them saying, we're having trouble sourcing your product. To which I responded to say, oh, really? You surprised me because obviously it's no longer in print, and so the fact that you can't source it is of no surprise whatsoever. And in that case, what are you going to do? And I would prefer a full refund.
Okay.
Fully expecting.
I mean, as a man who runs customer-fronted businesses, you are exactly the sort of person I love to receive emails from. So
great. It was like I must admit I was fully expecting to get the thing to say, I'm sorry, no, we don't do that. You're going to have an in-store credit note. That's what that is the response I was expecting. They refunded me almost on receipt of my email. On basically within several, within the same business day of me sending them the email, I had a response saying, "Of course, that's no problem whatsoever," and they refunded, and they did because I paid for it on PayPal, and they did a full refund for me. Which that's why I'm doing the point of order, because I did kind of say I wasn't very happy, and actually they came through.
Good outcome.
Very good outcome, and to be honest, I got a lot more than what I was expecting. So well done, Element Games.
Well done, Element Games, and well done, Neil, for standing up and saying that you did wrong. That you went off on one without even thinking about it, rashly going off on one yet again and slagging off a poor, hard-working manufacturer and supplier. Good on you, mate.
I wouldn't quite go that far, Mr. Hobbs, but there we go.
I was going to say I've always had a largely positive experience from those guys. I'm glad that was the outcome for you and for them. I think everyone's won.
Yeah.
I mean, you still haven't got your book, have you? But sure.
I must admit, I went somewhere else and got it because they turned around and said, "Oh, we've got it in stock." So, but subsequent to that, I did actually find out from Mr. Burks. Hello, Carl Burks, who Mr. Hobbs now knows because he met him at Joy 6. Carl turned around and said apparently they had a tabletop sale in store of all their Rune Wars stuff about at the start of June. So they basically had a tabletop clearance, not online, actually just in store. So I said the chances of you getting anything from what was left of their stock was fairly slim. I wish I'd known that 3 weeks ago, but never mind. Hey ho. So there we go. So thank you, Element Games. Much appreciated. Anyway, end of point of order and digression. Back to the subject of this evening.
Yeah.
Alex, as I say, hi, welcome. And right, so the first thing we need to do, and as I explained before we came on air, whenever we get a guest on the show, the first thing we ask, we try and find out a little bit more about them, and we do that by finding out how they got into the hobby, a bit about the gaming history. things like favourite game, favourite army, that sort of thing. So, how'd you get into the hobby, mate?
But before you start, Alex, just got to say, we normally keep this about 5 minutes. However, the last two wonderful guests we've had on have averaged about 37 minutes each.
Wow. Okay.
So somewhere between...
Challenge accepted.
Yes.
God, do I even have anything to talk about for 37 minutes? I hope so. So
a note from the editor: brevity is a good thing.
Right. Okay. Start the clock. Let's go. So, how did I get into hobby? I was, I think, like most people have that first product they see when they're a kid, right? The one that like grips your imagination and like really like gets you excited, and you're like, wow, what is this? And it's like completely and totally engaging. And the first thing that did that for me was Necromunda. And
Cool.
That was back in the late 90s, right? If I got my timeline right. And then that started the whole kind of typical kind of GW arc for me. So I ended up playing a little bit of all of their products.
So what gangs were you into?
So I had the starter box with the Orlocks and the Goliaths, you know, like the single pose ones.
Oh yeah.
And the Goliaths that all looked like they were dancing in unison, like doing the YMCA or something. They all had like one hand out the side and one up in the air and stuff. And it was, and then I really got into the Delac, because the Matrix came out, right? So they had like the trench coats and like, you know, the Neo kind of thing going on. And I think at the time as well, there was so much cool fiction out there with Cal Jericho and Scabs and all the comics and stuff. So it was just like that I can really pinpoint that as being something that got me into. I think what gripped me first was like the narrative and stuff, and then I got into the game because I really wanted to, you know, use the miniatures and push the miniatures around and roll dice and stuff like that. And then I guess like that kind of started a love affair with most kind of cool board games and RPGs. So I play a lot of Dungeons and Dragons now. I've been in a Dungeons and Dragons group for 2 years. We did the Curse of Strahd campaign and recently started Waterdeep. I don't know, do you guys do any D&D? Am I talking gibberish?
Don't do D&D per se. I mean, I have done.
Yeah.
It's been a while, and I don't know. Some people are into things like is it Glorantha or something like that, Mr. Hobbs?
I play a bit of RuneQuest, and we're hoping to get a game of One Ring in fairly soon, and I really want to do the Warhammer Fantasy RPG.
Yeah, cool. Yeah, totally on board for that. So one of the lads I know has made a kind of character generation spreadsheet and stuff like that recently. He's had a lot of fun with that. But anyway, I digress. So I was super into Necromunda, and then my cousin had it's when 40k third edition had just come out. Right. And he'd got second edition Blood Angel Army, and they just updated all of the Space Marine minis. So he just gave me the old sculpt army, just gave it to me because he wanted to buy a new army, and then also meant somebody else had an army and then we could play together and stuff, and that was super cool.
Yeah, because that was the first time they actually kind of started to go chapter specific with the sculpts, wasn't it?
That was that was a little bit later. Okay. This was when Space Marines was still. It's when they'd started to release the multi-part posable pack sculpts.
Yeah.
So they've now moved away from all of that, like because it's when you had like the ball and socket waists and legs and stuff, so you could like try and make them more posable, but it was actually quite a faff to build them.
Yeah.
And
that's
then
what all my army is.
The old posable ones.
Yeah.
I must admit, I'm still a fan of good old Box RB01.
Oh, shut up, you old fart, you.
the old plastic beaky Marines.
Yeah.
Mark 6 army, you can't beat it. Moving quickly on, yeah.
And so I painted them all up as Blood Angels and stuff, and that was really great. And then I always wanted to get into fantasy like big time because I always loved the miniatures, and I think Sword and Sorcery was always as a setting something I preferred, but I just didn't like, and I never have liked, the ranking up.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? So like, and I know it's quite a big fit. Obviously, Ninth Age is not a real game, but apparently some people play it. And then there's shots fired. Oh, shots
Okay,
fired.
that's Alex Ley, not of this parish.
And interview done. No, I'm joking. I just never really liked the ranking up thing. It was kind of like too neat for me. I don't know, and it was all about like the precision of movement and your aspects and your facing, right? And I didn't have the patience for it. So when coming along, and then I sort of stopped doing wargaming and I went to uni. No, not when I went to uni, sorry, when I was in sixth form, sort of late teens, because I don't know if this is typical or not. A lot of people told me it isn't, and I thought it was. I thought, like, in my late teens, I kind of got a bit embarrassed by it, which I know you shouldn't do, and it's quite shameful. But I sort of put a lot of it down, but I never stopped going on the Games Workshop website and keeping up to date with it, checking stuff out. So really, it was like, I don't know, in my head, it was just like, and I don't know, in my head, I was like, thought that maybe I needed to move away from that. I was kind of a little bit embarrassed by it, which isn't cool. And I think one of the cool things now for younger people is I like to think they don't have that same pressure now. I think that if you're out and out into a hobby like that when you're a kid now, it's like, I get the impression it's a lot more accepting and there's less of that kind of weird pressure to not be okay with it. So, and
certainly sees a lot more an acceptance of for want of a better phrase, nerdist culture.
Right. And I think look at Stranger Things and stuff like that now. Like, people are so into that, and they love like, people at work ask me all the time about D&D because they saw the kids playing it in the show. And they're all like, they want to know more about it because they're like, oh god, it looks like such like loads of fun and stuff. It was like, yeah, we've been doing this stuff for years, and we kind of weirdly grew up in a bit of a slightly aggressive culture towards it. I don't know, that kind of tried to make you feel a bit embarrassed by it, and now we sort of celebrate it, which is fantastic. I'm so happy about that. But yeah, I will admit that in my late teens, I think I kind of caved into that a little bit.
I think it's slightly unusual because I think most people normally stop wargaming because they get distracted by beer and women.
Yeah, pretty much.
I mean, I did pick up a guitar and join a punk band. So
okay, fair enough.
That's fair enough. Yeah.
So yeah, I guess that happened. So picked up a guitar, joined a punk band, and then went to uni. And then that first day you're in halls and you meet all these people for the first time, and you're kind of like, yeah, I can just be whoever I want to be. It's all kind of like underwritten. Doesn't matter. I went and bought the 40k. Where were we by that point? We were on 5th edition. I went and bought so I missed 4th edition in its entirety.
So hang on, remind me, 5th edition, is that the one with the Black Templars on the front?
No, that was 4th edition.
That's 4th edition.
Oh, sorry, Black Templars on the front was 3rd edition. And then 4th edition was Tyranids versus Ultramarines. And then 6th edition was the Dark Angels on the front, but it was still generic Marines in the box, right? And it was Orcs. Is that right? Have I got that right? Or am I confusing myself now?
Oh,
sorry, I was thinking rulebook as opposed to to box.
The rulebooks all just blend into one.
That was the 3rd edition. That was the 3rd edition rulebook that had the Black Templars ranked up in the last stand pose. Is that what you mean?
No, yeah. Well, I was. Oh, crikey! Hang on. Yeah, yeah. It has to be.
I have the internet right here. Should I Google it?
That would be.
Let me just walk over to my cupboard and see what I can find.
Yeah, go on, Mike. Yeah. I mean, I must admit, I kind of.
Oh no, they're in the attic.
Hang on. Surely Black Templars 4th edition, because
no, 3rd edition rulebook is the one with Black Templars on the front.
Yeah, I think you're right.
Hang on. I thought Blood Angels and Orcs.
Blood Angels
was no. Oh no, that's 2nd edition.
That's 2nd edition when you got the dreadnought that was in there was a cardboard cutout.
That's it. Yeah, that was the last 40k box set I bought. Yeah. So which is kind of showing my age.
I think retrospectively that was probably like the last super awesome edition of the game. If I'm honest, I think 40k was the one I was into more at school because that's what the other nerds were playing. And actually, as I said, Necromunda was the one I always really enjoyed because I loved the micromanagement.
Yeah.
Like I'm going to give that guy like this kind of pistol and he's going to have this skill. Even if that skill's a bit like crap, it's just like, it's funny because you're creating a character.
And of course, mechanically, it was based on second edition, wasn't it? 40K.
Yeah, it was. Yeah. So you had parries and proper leadership and weirdly now we've gone full circle back to this, but terrain had different effects as well, right? So there was like hallucinogenic gas and poisons and toxins and things.
Oh,
yeah.
Awesome.
So like
it was an awesome game. Yeah, I loved it. Yeah.
So yeah, that
Redemptionists.
Yeah, that's it. I mean, oh god, I think I'm quite glad that IP got a little bit of a redraw, if you get me. Like, I'm glad it was all a bit. I think retrospectively, it was all the hoods were a tad on the pointy end. If you get me,
I kind of know where you're coming from on that one. Yes, it's like you have to be very careful what colour you painted them. Yes.
Yeah, like it was a kind of I got why they went with that aesthetic because historically it was based upon that the kind of an old Catholic tradition, wasn't it, of wearing the big pointers, but obviously it got hijacked by extremist Nazis, so I'm kind of glad they've rewritten the fluff around them, so they've still got that zeal and that kind of character about them, but they aesthetically look a little bit more PC.
Yeah.
So,
Don't pay them right, for God's sake.
Like the Redeemer himself was such a cool character. We actually did a narrative campaign last year where one of my friends is a massive Blood Bowl player and he loves a bit of Necromunda as well. And he actually picked up the old Redeemer model and we wrote a profile for him and had him very much in the campaign and stuff, and it was great. He ended up running around in the dark by himself, chainsawing up plague zombies just for lols because he couldn't be bothered to really work with anybody else. It was so much fun. So, and that was it. And then I think played a few other games, played a little bit of X-Wing for a while, tried a few other systems out because I think the one thing about GW, which I'm sure you agree, is it does come with a bit of a price barrier, particularly not so much now, but I think 10 years ago, the direction the company was going is it was all big armies, right? So it was all about volume.
Mm.
And I couldn't really keep up with it. I just left uni. I was just starting work. I couldn't, paying rent and whatever, couldn't really justify trying to keep up with all of that. So I sort of walked away from GW and started trying to play a bit of War Machine and X-Wing.
Which War Machine in and of itself is a bit of a I'm probably throwing it with an old brush because I played first edition War Machine and that certainly had a bit of a arms race aspect to it, shall we say?
So yeah, I mean, particularly when they started releasing like the big Leviathan-y type ones, right? So it was all just it was the same. It's the same symptoms with a lot of games, right? Who has the deepest pockets often commands the table, right?
Yeah.
Which, that's fine. I get it. I get these are businesses and they got products to sell and they need to keep themselves competitive, whatever. But I think it's sometimes nice just to try and find a rule system that's just inherently balanced without having to do that.
Cool. Yes.
So I had a look around for a while and I did start to play a bit of Infinity, but I'll be honest with you, what put me off that was just having to kind of start from scratch with a new table and a new rule system and stuff like that. So we ended up just playing lots of board games. So like Catan, Zombicide, is it Rune Wars? Have I got that right? Rune Wars?
There was a Rune Wars board game before they turned it into a miniatures game, yeah.
Yeah. I think we played the board game version of it. And then Age of Sigmar came along. So bringing us right up to four years ago now. And I'd always wanted a Skaven army. I'd always wanted a Skaven army because I was like, this is like the coolest. Like, you can tell already, give me story first and I'll worry about the rules later.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's exactly how I've always been. And that'll be, I mean, we're going to come on to talk about Mind Over the Realms, but it was a narrative event for a reason. That's because that's what me and the guys that joined in with the event on the day were all passionate about. And Skaven for me just represented everything that was awesome about fantasy. Like, they're underhanded, but could also be incredibly successful if they just organized themselves a little bit. They had all the steampunk technology. I think, just to put some context on that, my favorite book ever written is War of the Worlds by H.G. Wells.
Cool.
So much so, as an East London hipster, I actually have a half sleeve tattoo of War of the Worlds and of various Jules Verne imagery and stuff as well. And Skaven represented like all of the steampunk kind of wacky element of fantasy. But as I said, I never really admired fantasy as a game, and I'm not having a go. I know I was having a go at Ninth Age earlier. That's just me being me trying to be funny. But it was the first opportunity to buy a load of Skaven, put them on rounds, and play small scale with a 4-page PDF, right? And
because before, obviously, with the Skaven army, you had to have about 300 miniatures, didn't you?
Yeah. And the meta, if I remember, because one of my close friends who I'm currently living with, he said the meta was like having 150 Skaven slaves or something, which I remember thinking at retail that was nearly alone about 300 quid's worth of miniatures.
Yeah, and that's one unit.
It was just, that was mental. It was just mental, right? So to be able to have, and this is when my hat did come off officially to GW, and I was like, I'm back in, I'm invested. Was when a 4-page PDF was released online. All of the rules were free. The barrier to access was just having some models, and it wasn't complicated to learn. You could build the army almost however you wanted. There wasn't really any restrictions, and you just played, and it was great. And that's why I ended up here today now with 3 Age of Sigmar armies and a fiance that's threatening to leave me if I don't get rid of at least one of them. So,
right, I see.
So I wasn't 37 minutes, but was that concise enough? Or
that was cool. I like that. Yeah.
No, that was cool. So basically, the destruction of the old Warhammer world was inconsequential to your gaming hobby.
So look, I loved the Gotrek and Felix novels. So like it was inconsequential to my gaming hobby, but I still felt the pain. Like I was there with you guys. I was there with everybody. I was a sympathizer. But now Gotrek's back, so I don't care anymore. So that's fine. It blew up. I don't care.
Fair enough.
Sorry.
It is good to hear from the other side, I must admit. It's quite refreshing because Neil, you played fantasy, didn't you? A long time ago.
A while ago, yes, but
yeah,
yes, I think I played around. I think it was around about. It was around about the time of Hero Hammer. I was playing.
Oh, cool. Yeah,
I think
nice.
he's 5th edition, something like that. Yeah.
Yeah. I never was. So when they did Age of Sigmar, I sort of looked upon it as like, well, why not? And it was just fun watching everyone. Everyone was just going off about it. It was just like, yeah, only a game. Just play the old game. So, hey ho, it's good to hear from the other side.
Yeah, I don't want to sound like really nihilistic about it. I think I get why people are upset. Do you remember that video came out, a guy who burnt his Dark Elf army? Do you remember that?
Oh yeah.
Because I remember showing my girlfriend at the time, my fiance now, that video. And I was like, this is how upset some people are about it. And she's from Finland, so she doesn't mix her words. They don't really do like dressing up how they feel. And she was just like, and her reaction was, "Can we swear on this podcast? Are we allowed to swear on this podcast? Is that a no?" I'm sensing a no. I won't swear. She basically just, because I was just going to quote her anyway. She just basically was like, "What's wrong with you guys?" Basically, like, "Oh, come on."
I can imagine.
And I had to sit there and go, like, that army that he's just set on fire is probably 20 years old, maybe older, and he's probably built that up. It would be the equivalent of having something that you've cherished for 30 odd years, that you've painstakingly looked after, and then one day somebody turning around and saying, you can't have that anymore. But actually, at the same time, that's not really what was happening, right? Because it was always the platform for you to still use those miniatures. So I just always felt like the thing was handled perfectly well. I think if it was maybe a bit clumsy, I think people just needed to wait a little while, let it settle, and see what was going to happen before setting stuff on fire.
Yeah, that's always the last resort for any army, I find, is to set it on fire.
Well, unless you're playing an extreme version of a rule set where when a unit gets destroyed, you have to physically destroy them.
Yeah, I can't even do that with a card.
This is it. It's like legacy games.
I can't even do legacy games.
No, I can't. It's like, do you understand that link?
The amount of armies I've lost just a quick kind of lighter fluid and a bad temper. So.
I feel it, mate. I must admit, when you sort of look back at Sigmar, when they first released it, they had that famous sort of 4-page PDF, and I read it. Thought, okay, the rules were quite interesting. But then you had those. They came up with some odd army lists with those weird things like
the special rules.
Yeah, the special rules. I thought, that's a little bit silly. What are they doing? But then they very quickly turned it around, and I think the General's Handbook helped that quite a lot, didn't it? Because it brought in the idea of having points and having more standard armies and stuff.
I think it's the refresh rate as well, right? Because how frustrating was it 20 years ago when your army got a book, the book was naff, and you're like, I'm now done for 2 years.
I'm now another 200 armies.
Yeah, and I'm going to have to go and buy another army. Sorry, dear. But it was frustrating, right? Now we're in a position, and I think the game is in a really good place, and also I think largely because of the community as well, which is something we're definitely going to talk about in a bit. But the community, Games Workshop now listen to the community in theory. Well, let's put it this way: they listen to them more than they used to, and we now, I think, are looking at points revisions probably every 6 months. I think that's the point of the pull-out pamphlet that we've seen recently, and that's great, right? Because it just in terms of keeping a game fresh, doesn't matter that it's GW, doesn't matter that if it's Mantic or whoever, just introducing a mechanic within your game where you are constantly having that refresh rate and listening to feedback. I'm all for that. Really, just all for it.
Yeah.
Sorry, rant over.
No, it's fine. No, it's fine. It's fine. Yeah. No, I was thinking back to when you I think you were saying you were all about theme in your armies. As one of the only people I know who actually owned a 40k Deathwing army, which according to the theme are meant to be absolutely awesome. But if you've ever played a game with them, they get completely trashed.
Yeah.
And it's like, Terminator. Oh, come on, Space Marine Terminators. They're meant to be the best of the best.
Right.
How come they get trashed by everybody?
I mean, theoretically now, if you were to look out your window and 40 Terminators just teleported, you're like, right, well, this entire United Kingdom has now been taken over because there's no way we're dealing with that, right? That in fluff terms, that's what that's meant to be. That's meant to be like world ending. And then actually on the table, 40 Terminators turn up and what, like Eldar put down a couple of D-template weapons and that's it, they're all gone.
Yeah.
I think Space Marines in particular suffered from, which is arguably why this whole weird Primaris thing's going on, which I admit I'm a little bit out of touch with, I should say. But I think Space Marines suffered from not translating into the game as how they were written in the fluff, right?
Yeah.
And I think that's probably when I think I started to sort of lose interest in 40k a little bit. And again, that's why I loved Necromunda, because the gangs were like, actually, as they were written in the fluff, it felt like the rules, to me, it felt with Necromunda that the rules came first, and then the gangs were built around the rules set. And there was actually like some people who were in charge of the design sitting down and making sure these things complemented each other. And I think the larger scale games had suffered from not having that level of attention to detail. But sure.
Yeah. Cool.
Well, that's the first section.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. Well, thanks for that.
How was I for time? Was that 37 minutes?
You're getting there. Keep talking.
Funnily enough, as we're talking at this point in time, the timer has is just about to click over to 38 minutes. Although, with editing, it's close. Thank you for keeping your answers brief and to the point, Alex. It's good to see that you're getting on board with the spirit of the podcast. I should look forward to the rest of the evening. Okay, and on that note, what we'll do, we'll take a quick break, and when we come back, it's time to enter the confessional. The Meeples and Miniatures podcast is proud to be sponsored by Two Fat Lardies, purveyors of the finest rules, supplements, and gaming accessories for all your wargaming needs. Most recent in their offerings include the 100 Days Scenario Supplement 1815 for General Dame by David Brown, and also the latest point-sized campaign for Chain of Command, taking the Gemblow Gap. Don't forget that you can get more Two Fat Lardies by viewing Lard TV on YouTube. The latest episodes include a 2-part playing of games from the Gemblow Gap supplement, and also includes the latest video from Big Rich as he customises some more terrain. Also, don't forget that for your listening pleasure, you can also download The Oddcast. It's available on Lord TV, but also via your podcast app of choice. Two Fat Lardies. Play the period, not the rules. Dearly beloved, we are gathered here again to... No, we're going to celebrate it still.
Yeah.
Sod the guru, love. Yeah.
You can still confess, and that's still...
Yeah. But we're... Yes, but we're not exactly... are we sorry?
Forgiveness.
Yeah, you're going to say, are we sorry?
Forgiveness.
No, not at all. No. Right, okay. I'll kick off again this time around. A relatively quiet couple of weeks again, probably letting the side down, but hey ho. So what have I done in the past couple of, what's happened and what's turned up in the past couple of weeks? Okay, so there was the whole episode that I hinted at with Element Games. It basically meant that the final character for my Rune Wars and Dead Army turned up, but I got it from somewhere else. Interestingly, though, I'm now seeing, that this whole thing about getting new Rune Wars armies got started by A1 Toys at the UK Games Expo. Mm-hmm. They have started adding some more stuff onto their website finally. I'm trying to stay away, but I keep hitting refresh just in case I see anything interesting. And it's terrible. Anyway, I should keep away from that. Anyway, other than that, not a lot as far as figures are concerned. I had a couple of games turned up. Did we say last time that Etherfields hadn't Kickstarter hadn't started? Yes, I've backed Etherfields for Awakened Realms on Kickstarter. That looks so cool, and as they're carrying on.
Sorry, what's Awakened Realms been up to these days? Because I bought some really cool terrain from them about a few years ago.
Oh, right. They are... Well, whether or not it's the same company, it may be... Because they're based in... Oh, well, they're Polish, aren't they? Awakened Realms? Yes. Yeah. These days, they're primarily known as a board game producer. And they've been publishing several board games recently with some stunning miniatures. So this is the last time on this show I'm going to mention Nemesis. Everybody knows why, No, I still haven't got mine. No, I still haven't got the dispatch note. Never mind. Anyway, so they had a game called Nemesis, which is one of. Okay, so.
Shiny.
Kind of
So I'm just having a look online.
Sci-fi, sci-fi horror board games are becoming a bit of a thing at the moment over the last year or so. So Nemesis was one skit on kind of an alien type thing, and they had a lot of miniatures on that, which are actually really nice. However, they've done a couple since. They did a game called Lords of Hellas, which. The mate Dave bought, which again is that's kind of sci-fi Greek. That was really that's quite interesting. But the one they're doing at the moment is a game called Etherfields, which it's a crikey storytelling-ish game.
Yeah, storytelling, horror, dream-like, odds. Slightly
looks a bit kind of Lovecrafty, right? H.P. Lovecraft sort of style, dream worldy.
Yeah, it's like Lovecraft meets Alice in Wonderland.
Yeah, okay, that's a good analogy. So,
yeah,
okay.
but it's got some. But I'll tell you, they were showing off some of the miniatures. They were so I think they weren't 3-ups. They were like 1.5 scale or something like that, and they are so good. So good. So that's kind of what they're doing these days. So yeah, I'll back that.
Gameplay was great.
Oh, gameplay stunning. Yeah, and the thing was, we only kind of scratched the surface. We just basically played most of the introductory scenario, and then we had a quick 5 minutes where you kind of went, oh yeah, and then this happens, and the game just basically explodes, and it's like, oh right, okay. So it's it's a kind of it's a real kind of enter into a dream realm sort of adventure game. Something like, and I think at the moment they're looking at like 70 odd, 80 odd hours gameplay or something like that. It's it looks really cool. So yeah, back that. Oh, Test of Honor 2 turned up. I'd forgotten that was turning up in July. But that turned up.
Oh, you've been playing. I played the original edition with my mate Rob, and that because he genuinely does ninjutsu. So it was the first board game where he saw the aesthetic and immediately went nuts and bought it and then came back with him. Was playing a bit of that with him a few weeks ago. It's really good.
What they've done is that because obviously that was first done by Warlord. And they decided to bring it back. The game design, two guys who actually designed the game decided to bring it back in house because they wanted to do a second edition and essentially put the game back to its roots and the way they wanted it to be, as opposed to the way it turned out.
That's interesting. Okay.
Because their vision of the game was much more like I've forgotten the genre of the film, but it's things like Yojimbo and Seven Samurai sort of style of game, as opposed to Armored Samurai and Ashigaru. So it's all meant to be things like Unarmored Samurai and Bandits and that sort of stuff, and there's meant to be a lot more heroic feats and skills.
You're kind of your sort of journeyman sort of style. Is that what you mean?
Yeah, right. And going, it's a lot more along that's and very cinematic gameplay, which kind of got simplified out of the game in first edition, and they put it all back, and they put it all back in second edition, which basically means that you can do a lot more fun stuff.
So I guess Warlord can be a bit pick up and go sometimes, right? So I guess that's what they were trying to get out of it.
Plus they had a particular miniatures range that they wanted to sell, which was the old War Games Factory, Ashigaru, and Samurai. So
the sculpts came first, basically. Is that what we're saying?
I think we're saying that one.
We couldn't possibly comment.
No, because we don't know.
Yes.
We don't know for certain. But I mean, having chatted on several occasions to Andy Hobday, we know that they kind of went along. Warlord went along certain design directions that were different from the original intention, which is why they ended up. We now have a second edition, which is effectively what the game was meant to be in the first place.
Okay.
So that is, it looks a lot of fun. So looking forward to getting that onto the table. And that's a lot more kind of. That's a lot more. Again, it's a lot more warbandy skirmish. That's cool. And the other main thing that happened was I had a Kickstarter turn up, which we were talking about alien style horror board games, and Lifeform turned up, which was funny enough. It came out. It was on Kickstarter around about the same time that Nemesis was, and if Nemesis was compared to being aliens, Lifeform was Alien. So basically, it's a semi-cooperative game because one person plays the alien or the alien presence on the ship, and you're on funny enough, you're on a mining ship, and you have a certain amount of time to it's become infested by aliens, and you have a certain amount of time to basically get everything together and get off the ship before the self-destruct goes off. But it's a very alien style themed game, which is rather cool. So that arrived. I think that's about me. I've been quite restrained.
That's unusual.
It was. Yeah, as I say, I'm not. I ordered some stuff. Basically, I've just put a pre-order in for all the Star Wars Legion stuff that's due out this month. Which again, nothing's arrived yet because obviously you put it all in for one point. I'm just waiting for it all to turn up. But it's the latest Rebel and Imperial expansions for Legion. So hopefully that will turn up in the non too distant future. But that's me. I'm done. So Alex, how about you? What have you been up to recently?
So confessions wise, I have been continuing. So as you know, you may have noticed I'm a bit of a GW fanboy. So I have pre-ordered Warcry.
Oh yeah,
I am intrigued by Warcry. This is a subject we might return to, or maybe even talk about it now. I am really intrigued by Warcry.
So me too. So I have confessed my love for Necromunda and smaller skirmish size games, and then I even said, but sword and sorcery is kind of more my thing. And then I just started seeing the sculpts coming out for Warcry, and I'd had a really long hard word with myself where I was going, I'm not going to buy this until I've played the game. I'm going to wait for the game to come out. I'm going to try it, see if I like it. And in the process of me having that word with myself, I'd already ordered it, so that it was too late. So
I like it. Yeah, because I must admit, I was quite surprised that they kind of went it, because I went that way, because I was under the impression, obviously falsely, that they kind of thought that kind of decided that the small scale skirmish for AOS was going to be Shadespire, and that
I don't think that was. So I don't think that was the case. I was speaking to my mate Andy, who plays a lot of Shadespire and Nightvault as it is now, because it's second edition.
Yeah.
So apparently the sculpts for that were always just meant to be alternative poses of existing miniatures for existing armies. So you know how you used to get, when all the armies are metal, you used to get a blister pack, so you could try and get the alternative pose of that sergeant or of that general or whatever. The intention behind the Shadespire sculpts originally was just to do like a little booster box for each faction. And then GW decided they wanted to do a card game. But it was never intended to be the kill team equivalent of AOS. And Warcry was always intended to be that. And I said to you before, like, I'm all about the narrative. And I really like that they're exploring chaos a bit more. And they're exploring it in this is how humans who don't actually know anything about it would have perceived it. So they've all got their own different interpretations of how chaos is represented in their realm or within their society. And some of these are like actually cohesive societies, right? Like the Cypher Lords, looking at their fluff, are meant to actually be a cohesive society or city. And that just really piqued my interest. And then when I saw the video of the gameplay mechanic, and it had some of that really cool mechanic have you played Saga?
Yep.
Oh, yeah.
So I love Saga. I love the resource management with the dice and the doubles, and managing your abilities. And particularly, I've been playing a fair bit of Age of Magic recently, and that mechanic is in Warcry. So you will roll a pool of dice, and you'll have some doubles, triples, and quads in there, which then allow you to access additional abilities. And Saga's really allowed me to scratch an itch recently of just wanting to have a rule set that was a bit more about your independent activations and managing your more resources than just having your movement phase and then and all the phases being quite binary. Yeah. I think that's the only thing with Warhammer. All your phases are the same, right? Because you do this, your units do a certain move, they do a certain shooting attack, they charge a certain amount. With this, it looked like it was all about the combos and the tactical positional play and stuff. So it just drew me in. So I went nuts and bought that. And then I've been buying, I'm going to, have you guys heard of RAW, Realms at War event, the big narrative event in Cambridge every year?
I've heard about it. I don't know much about it though.
So it's a Warhammer Age of Sigmar narrative event. So we always build our own sort of customized and themed armies for it. And I've been building a steampunk themed free city army with walking steam tanks and walking celestial hurricanums and infantry that have got robotic limbs and things. So I've been sort of tinkering with that recently because it's quite conversion heavy.
So I was going to say that sounds like that's basically every model is converted, and I mean, how do you source all that sort of thing?
On eBay, combination of eBay and just trying to mirror match the right kit. So I know it's not much of a confession because it wasn't like a big sort of splash purchase, but I keep getting a bit carried away every now and then, going, oh, that's a cool model, I'm going to get that because that'll look really cool in this raw army. And I haven't even thought as to whether I'm going to have enough points for it or whatever. I just keep buying little stuff. And then once you start doing these levels of conversions, I've got a steam tank in the list. The steam tank is a £30 model, but because I wanted a walking steam tank, it suddenly doubles in price because I've got to buy all the other kits that allow me to get my hands on the legs and the exhaust pipes, etc. that I want. So it's been a little bit, it's starting to become a bit more of a labour of love, but I'm really enjoying it. So I'm just pretending that credit cards are free money. So that's fine.
That's a very slippery slope to start down.
I'm joking. It's not that bad. But it is. It's not. I haven't got denial. What? So no, and I think other than that, then I've actually been having a bit of a clear out, to be honest with you. So I've been pretty good on the confessions front, but I feel that Warcry is probably going to be. I'm probably going to take quite a big splash on that one, I think. Yeah.
So what's the average warband size for Warcry then?
Looking at it, I mean, at the point that we're recording this, it hasn't come out, right? So I guess a lot of this is still a little TBC. But in terms of the volume of miniatures, what I'm hearing is between 6 to 12 models max.
Oh, okay, cool.
And most of the boxes appear to have circa 10 models. So what I'm seeing is that it looks to me like it's going to have some really cool replay value. It's got lots of great modelling, painting opportunity, and I'm sensing
you get an absolute ton of stuff in the box, don't you?
Oh, the box is phenomenal, right? I mean, you think about how sparse the GW starter boxes used to be in terms of usable content. Yeah. I mean, like back 20 years ago, we talked about the 3rd edition Warhammer 40k box, and you got one squad of Space Marines and one squad of Dark Eldar. Which didn't even mirror in points. So it was just like, it was basically a box with the rule book in it. Yeah. And now the way things are going, you're just getting so much more product for your money, which, let's face it, is how it should be. And to get all of the ruins in it, and I think the thing attracting to it, I live in London, I've already said that, carrying an army on a tube is a nightmare. And carrying an entire traversing London with with multiple KR cases or your chosen preferred manufacturer of carrying foam is it just not fun, particularly if you don't bother to run a car, because I don't. Warcry looks like it's going to go in a little case, and that's exactly what I'm looking for. So yeah, I kind of made a bit of a splash on that recently.
Cool.
Excellent. So, my turn.
So yeah, your turn. Sorry,
Yeah.
I should have led it. I'm not an experienced presenter like you. I didn't go for the segue. Just shut up.
No. We were just waiting for the next thing that he bought. Obviously that's it. Yeah.
I may have alluded to the fact that I have a fiance. I'm currently in wedding saving mode. So when I say wedding saving mode,
good luck.
I think when I say wedding saving mode, I mean my expenses are closely monitored. So so I'm not going to lie. I mean, I know we're talking about stuff that's tempting us, but I've just been Googling Etherfield.
Oh, sorry.
And this is all your fault. So
it is a tradition that our guest does buy something.
Is it?
Dude,
Did you buy it for the guests? Is there any chance?
No. We don't buy for the guests. It's a tradition that at least one of us will buy something during each show.
Generally what happens is that we start talking about something, somebody Googles it, and usually one of the presenters of the show has hit a buy button of some description, usually before the end of the recording.
Yeah. So I think I'm about to be a victim of that trope. So
sorry, mate.
No, it's all
really
good.
Good gameplay though.
It does look it, yeah. Anyway, stop selling it to me. Stop it. Anyway, go on.
Okay.
Right.
Mr. Hobbs, what have you been up to?
Yes. I also backed Fields because it's a great game. Well, and such, it's nice to see they've only got the one pledge there, easy to get into. Yeah, very, very simple to press that button. Wayne Peters, Mr. Wayne, you probably listen to this. You bad man. Well, first of all, I had Ralph, who was, hello Ralph, who's currently in the long lead somewhere. It was.
What, in the safari park?
Oh, he's got the centre parks. He's doing something with his kids and wife. I don't know, something active.
Right. Hello, Ralph.
Yeah. Hey
Ralph. So I just thought I'd better join in. So
good man. Yeah, he tried to get me to sign up for the Tugvig Chronicles board game, which does look really nice, and that's on Kickstarter at the moment.
Is that the new Simon?
Yeah.
Yeah. Yes.
It looks really good, and the Tugvig Chronicles is an RPG. I think it comes from Sweden, Finland, around that area. I think it's actually Swedish. So it's
I'm marrying a Finn, mate. Don't get those two confused. They get really upset.
Yes. Well, we had Per on the other week, and he'll tell us all about it. But I didn't. I haven't bought that one. I thought I'd be good because I've got I don't need to get another big fantasy board game. Really nice figures with a backing that I really like.
Well, we don't. Well, frankly, we don't need any of this. We don't need any of this stuff, do we? So let's take need out of the equation.
Yeah. Anyway,
or hedonism.
Yes.
Only because I've just dropped £75 because of you.
Yay! Well done, man. And then Wayne today.
What you mean? You haven't gone for the £117 version with the miniatures, with the extra miniatures box?
I was going to say you said extra miniatures there because I thought I was just about to get no miniatures at all.
No, the extra. No,
the extra miniatures. Oh, you should see the extra ones.
No, there's an extra. There's the standard box, and then there's a bonus box of minute. Now, okay, let's just say you can actually get that later in the pledge manager, should you so wish, and defer your budget.
Yeah.
But have a look at some of the miniatures that come in the extra box, because they're nice. Sorry, Mr. Hobbs, interrupting you.
Yeah. So So then Wayne pointed out that BattleTech have got a new Kickstarter just started.
Oh yes.
Ooh,
And because I'm sort of dabbling my toes into the old BattleTech world.
Is it the new Alpha box or the Alpha rules or whatever they call them?
Yeah, it's called Clan Invasion.
Yeah, that's it.
Yeah. So yeah, I pledged for that. Because they're nice new miniatures, and I'm very tempted by playing some BattleTech. I want to go back to old school hexes and things. It looks good. So yeah, so I've signed up for that one. Then there's been some purchases.
Yes.
I did get the Warhammer RPG. It's called Rough Days and Hard Nights. So it's a bunch of scenarios for that.
That's the Cubicle 7 one, yeah?
Yeah, that's the brand new one. That looks good. So I want to try and run the starter game later this year with some people. Just try it out.
Oh, do you want to do that online?
No, I want to do face to face.
Go on, carry on.
Does that basically mean you're not invited?
Yeah, basically, yeah.
Come down if you want. It's only a 100-mile journey.
It's a bit far for an evening. Yeah.
Yeah. We can do it over a weekend. Right. Apocalypse has hit bad. I think I mentioned last time that I bought Apocalypse.
Yes.
By the new movement trays and stuff.
No, I'm
being radical.
I'm playing the 6mm.
Oh, cool.
Using my old Epic armies that I bought when I was a lad. So,
is it the old? Is it? Sorry, I don't know much about it. Is it pretty similar to the old Epic rule set?
I would describe it probably as Epic Light. It's very thin down. I mean, I'll come on to the game later on, but yeah. So because that's hit. I bought a couple of battle mats for that. I think chat to Matt.
I missed that one.
Yeah, I bought a couple of battle mats. I bought one for Adeptus Titanicus because I've been after about map for that a while, and they also do like a ruined city, which is similar sort of map, for 28mm scale. And I have got a 40k city in my garage, so I just needed a battle map.
Is your garage literally an entire hive world?
There's lots of boxes of things that go back a few years. So I bought a battle mat for that. I got an army, some painting done by Gareth from ADC. Hello, Gareth. He did some World War II 15mm bits for me, and so I bought some nice urban bases. Yeah, I needed some support teams for my late war British Army.
Oh, okay.
So I picked up the Plastic Soldier Company support pack.
Yeah, that's quite a decent one. Yeah, I like that.
Yeah, and then I thought I can't be arsed making these, so I sent them to Gareth.
So that's for Battle Group?
Battle Group, or I Am Being Shot Mum, or something 15mm-ish. It's World War II 15mm. I can use for anything.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I bought some Karen King bases. They do really nice urban bases.
Oh, they do. Yes.
So I got some of those. What else we get? Vanguard. Right. So yes, the whole disappearing down the dark hole of let's do Horus Heresy in 6mm. I thought.
Sorry, say that again.
I'm doing Horus Heresy in 6mm. Well, you see, my thinking is, Alex, that I bought Adeptus Titanicus last year.
Yeah.
Because I'm a long time Epic player. That was my first build.
And Aeronautica's about to come out as well, right? So
yes, very excited about that.
Yeah.
So I've done up a couple of Titans, and I based them around the Burning the Prospero battle.
Oh, that's so cool.
Yeah. And then I thought, well, when I saw Apocalypse, I thought, I could use that for Apocalypse. And then I thought I could use Net Epic, which is my go-to 6-mil game. And then I was chatting to Peter Ramos, who's been on the show, and he's one of the guys who wrote Net Epic, and he said that he's working on a new game specifically for the Horus Heresy in 6-mil.
Oh, really?
Oh, sweet.
Yeah.
Oh, that'd be awesome.
Yeah. So, Vanguard Miniatures.
Yeah. We went to a 6-mil show a couple of weeks ago in Sheffield, and Mike hadn't. Although we were aware of the range, Mike had never seen them in the flesh.
Okay.
We mentioned this on the last show, but just to explain, he'd never actually seen them, and there was a guy who had a full set of their Nova Marines and their, I suppose what would be Imperial Guard equivalent there or thereof. I can't remember what the range is called, but yeah,
inspired by it.
Inspired. No, definitely,
very inspired by it.
Yeah, I mean, generic sci-fi troopers and tanks.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, good save, but cool.
Yes. And after I mopped up the drool, I think I've sent him down a well. Oh no, I haven't sent him. He kind of went all of his own accord, but
I jumped on my own accord. Yeah.
Yes.
Oh, did you say this is Heresy Miniatures?
No, Vanguard.
Oh, Vanguard. Right. Sorry. Okay. Yeah.
So I initially bought a small order just to try them out. I bought a few packs just to have a look at them, and I did another little order just to have a look at some of the vehicles. Now bought
another little order. Yeah. Trouble is, this is 6-mil.
It's in a very small box.
So when you did one order, so you took out a mortgage.
No. It was tiny.
Took out
tiny
another mortgage.
No.
Okay. Oh God, these are so nice.
Yeah, the third one has been fairly big. So I've just bought the pretty much all I'm going to need for the Thousand Suns army, and then I'll do some other Space Wolves later. I've done a few Space Wolves just to get used to the colours I want to use.
Yeah.
Painting and stuff. So yeah.
Is that with contrast?
The Thousand Suns, yeah. What I've done is I sprayed them white, gave them a sort of wet brush of gold all over, and then used the red contrast on top.
Mm-hmm.
And that looks lush. And then once that dries, I just touch on all the details.
Nice.
Yeah. So I've done a few of those, and I've got another 80 on sticks to paint this weekend.
That's what contrast's for.
Yeah. Plus, I'm digging up my Warhounds as well, so they're being painted. But that's about it, really. So, yeah.
How many of those have you got? Oh, sorry.
Well,
are they the new Warhounds, or are they your old ones?
No, these are the new ones from Titanicus.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Because obviously the old ones wouldn't quite fit in the same scale, would they?
No. That's what I thought.
Just from my understanding, does the Adeptus Titanicus Titans scale correctly to 6-mil epic? Is that right?
Near enough, yeah. Especially these ones. They work quite nicely, yeah. Because they are quite big and chunky, and they're based in the Heresy, so it makes sense to do nice new Heresy armies instead of use my old 40k armies that I got. Because I've got 7 armies. So, epic.
Yes, because you can never have enough 6-mil. Yes.
You can never have enough 6-mil. Yeah.
Sci-fi.
Yeah.
But
so,
mind you, it has to be said. You look. I mean, all you have to do with Vanguard is just look at figures aside, which are nice enough, but their armored vehicles are just awesome.
Yeah, and they're beautifully cast, and he delivers like literally next day.
I'm looking at the Cyber Shadow range because I must admit I do like the in Games Workshop IP terms the Adeptus Mechanicus.
Yeah.
Which is just because of my steampunk thing. these are really nice sculpts. I don't blame you.
Yeah. Yeah, they also do female, if you ever wondered that way.
Yeah.
You mean representation? Yeah.
Yeah. But yeah. Anyway, so that's it. That's all I bought.
If ever you wanted to represent a legion at 1-to-1 scale, and didn't want to break the bank, 3 mil is the way to go. Yeah. Is that it then, Mr. Hobbs, or have you done anything else?
Well, that's it for the purchasing.
Right. Okay.
Any temptations, anybody?
Temptations.
Well, I just caved into one, didn't I, while we were on the call?
Yeah.
So
yeah, fair enough.
Yeah.
I did have another one actually. To be fair, I have been very much considering buying the Age of Magic, the Saga Age of Magic book.
Oh dear, I think you've just you might have set Neil off again.
No, it's fine. It's
okay. Oh no,
it's fine. It's fine. I have my dice. It's fine.
Okay, you're happy.
You waiting for Tomahawk dice?
I was. I'm not anymore.
That's okay. My friend is still waiting for his, so you've done well. So
was that? Oh, sorry. Was that after initial? Was that after initial pre-order?
Think so.
Oh my word! Oh, somebody's even in a worse boat than me. Oh my word!
Yeah, and he's full on going to like an event and stuff for it as well. So yeah. But anyway, but I've been kind of tempted by that. I think the other big one I was looking at, and I'm actually really interested to hear if you've played it. I came across Scythe recently.
Ooh.
Yeah, I played that.
And when you find it difficult to separate this box of stuff looks glorious from this game looks awesome. I still can't get my head around whether I'm just completely sold on the aesthetic of it or whether I like the idea of the game. So I've been kind of managing myself.
Yeah, it's. I mean, the artwork for the game and the idea behind it is superb. I mean, especially with you saying, you're a fan of steampunk and stuff. I can see where you go on that. I mean, I think we have I think myself and Mr. Hobbs have slightly different thoughts on the game. I kind of get the impression, Mike, forgive me if I'm wrong, I kind of get the impression that you could kind of take it or leave it.
It took me a while to work out what the hell I was doing, but once I'd worked it out, I've quite enjoyed it.
Yeah.
I guess I'm not really good at those engine games.
It's primarily a dudes on a board. It's a dudes on a board area control game, but
it's risk management, isn't it? Basically?
Yeah, but there's a lot of extra bits and pieces in it as far, and the way they do the differences between all the factions. So yeah, it is asymmetric between all the factions, but it is very well balanced. I mean, I haven't played it enough. I don't think. I mean, I think I've had probably about 3 games of it now. I think it's a really good game. Yeah, it hasn't seen the table enough. But yeah, it's the artwork's stunning. I love the game. So yeah, you're not asking the right person here to try and talk you out of it.
No, I mean I wasn't necessarily looking to be talked out of it. I think it's I've sat on the fence for ages about it, and I'm happy to. It's one of those things that I'm super happy to get it if I know I'm going to use it. Do you know what I mean?
Oh yeah, and that's the thing. It's like if you can get it to the table. And again, it's one of these things of, I suppose it's as a general thing, it's this thing of when you buy a game, how much bang for your buck are you going to get out of it?
Right, exactly. Your replay value,
and also making sure that, I mean, for me, it's a case of, well, if you get to a point where a game has cost you the price of a cinema ticket because of the amount of times you played it, then
the cinema test, the classic,
then I'm happy.
Yeah.
But I mean, I have the added advantage of I didn't buy it, a mate did.
Nice.
But yeah, I mean, yeah.
Did he take you to the cinema afterwards just to like really splash out? Or, like...
He bought him ice cream as well.
I'm sorry, Mr. Hobbs, are you trying to spread rumours or something?
Always.
Sorry, I interrupted, and now no one knows where they're off. So, like...
Right, okay. Well, okay. So you talk about Age of Magic and Scythe. Okay, so not so much new shiny as a. I forgot. I meant to talk about that because it's something we've seen on a couple of occasions. Okay, I meant to talk about this before because it's a cool idea. Flat pack forces.
Oh, is this the guys we saw at the
Games
Expo?
Expo? Yes.
Yes.
Right. Okay. So you know how Foreground, and let's not get into that story. Okay, before we go any further. But you know how Foreground pre-colored their MDF.
Yeah.
For MDF buildings. Right. So Flat Pack Forces. Guy called Andrew Filden, who's an old gaming buddy of mine, but had the idea of we've seen it on MDF buildings. If you want to play a game, but you're not a miniatures painter, or you want to get into something and not have either the outlay in miniatures, or not just the outlay in miniatures, but the time that you then need to get things painted before you can put them on the table. Why? But you want to play with miniatures. Why not use MDF? Well, it's effective. Remember back in the days when they used to have flats. Back in wherever it was. Well, yeah.
1930s, you mean?
Yes. When they used to have these flats. Anyway, so basically they are 28mm scale MDF miniatures, but they are pre-coloured. So they're basically printed as a colour piece of MDF, but that they're pre-coloured. Now, when he first started as a proof of concept, he started with some World War II stuff, which was he did some US powers and some Fallschirmjäger, but pretty soon after that, he had the idea of, well, hang on a second, let's change it slightly, and let's do fantasy. So he's had the kind of idea of what it's ideal for doing things like, for example, if you were role-playing, and you wanted something to represent your heroes and maybe some some monsters, but you didn't want the outlay of buying D&D miniatures. But you wanted something that you could stick on the board straight away. Why not get pre-printed MDF and just do them as figure representations? And he kind of took it from there to the point where now he's got several different warbands. He's got adventurers. He's got several different sets of dungeon monsters, warbands for orcs and goblins, and then he's got 2 full armies. One of which is the artwork is kind of inspired by the kind of high elf look. And the other one is undead.
Okay.
And so he's produced units for all this, and he's put them together and say, okay, you can basically buy a full set of miniatures, 2 armies to play Dragon Rampant. For example, or perhaps, I mean, at this point, you could probably even say Saga Age of Magic. And that will cost, basically it will cost you about £50 all in, and all you need to do is pop them out, put them on a base, and they're done. I mean, the bases are. The bases are included in the figure, and then at the end of the night you can pop them off the base, and basically you can put your entire army into a sandwich box.
Handy for those living in London who want to go on the tube.
Yeah, you know what? You can definitely get that on the tube.
Yeah.
I'm looking at it now, actually. I love the fact that the way that he's coloured them as well. They look a little bit like old SNES characters as well. Like
Yeah.
they look a bit 32-bit, you know.
Yeah, very much so.
Kind of adds to it, I think. So yeah, particularly with sword and sorcery.
Yeah, he's been doing different things as well. He's currently been working with Simon Miller from the Big Red Bat Shop, guy who does The Strongest, because they've been doing Roads and Rivers.
Nice.
And on his store, I think they've got them. So it's either Roads or Rivers. I think he's done a special print run for Simon where they're double-sided. So one side is road and the other side is river, which I think is
cool.
And of course they fit together like jigsaw pieces, which I thought was a really cool idea. Now it's only going to appeal to a certain part of the of the hobby, because obviously there's loads of us who like full 3D miniatures and getting the paints out and this, that, and the other. But if you just want to spend a fairly minimal outlay, but get a decent sized army, get it on the table, and have a go with something.
Yeah, absolutely. I completely agree. I think particularly with something like Age of Magic as well, because Age of Magic is a rule set, right? They don't actually have a miniature range. They don't necessarily back a particular preferred miniature range either. And your thing, as you said, it may just be that you really like a rule set and you really want to just play with that rule set, but you've got absolutely no time or interest in doing the models. This is actually quite a cool solution.
This is it. I mean, especially when, like, for example, okay, so the average, a standard unit in Age of Magic is 8 troops for a warrior force, and that all ready to go is going to cost you a fiver, I think. Yeah,
it is. Yeah, looking at it.
Yeah, and they've just released some new skeletal cavalry. But I say at the moment they've got 2 main fantasy armies, which is undead and elves, and then they've got an orc warband, they've got a goblin warband, and then they've got some kind of other generic fantasy beasts, including trolls and various other bits and pieces. But yeah, so anything, whether it's kind of small warband, so whether it's if you want to do something like Thud and Blunder, for example. Say small warband up to something like Age of Magic. If you didn't want the outlay for a full set of miniatures, but wanted that something you could put together quick, and just have a game. I say it's something we saw, and I've forgotten to mention it. And I say they've just released the Undead Cavalry. I thought, they look quite cool. So I thought I'd give them a quick plug, because they do a lot. They do lots of bits and pieces, and it's a really interesting concept.
I think these are great for dungeon crawlers, personally.
Yeah.
Because dungeon crawlers are absolutely the sort of thing where you may not have any interest at all in painting the models. And you also, I think the cool thing with dungeon crawlers as well is you want to be able to cycle through different tropes and types of character. And as you said, then you've got to worry about sourcing the models for that and painting them and buying them. And you may have a session coming up, like next week, you want to have a load of bandits in it, but you don't want to have to go out and buy a load of bandits and then possibly only use them once, never use them again. It's just a cool way of adding some variety to those sort of games, I think.
Yeah, very much so. Very much so. So that's my shiny. And hello,
nice.
Andrew. Mr. Hobbs, anything?
One thing did jump out. It actually dropped into our mailbox the other day, which does look very silly but very much fun. Ultimate Dinosaur Fighting, 2nd edition. Who doesn't like a bunch of dinosaurs in a pit fighting with lasers?
Wow. Wow.
It's by New Comic Games, and it looks, it looks like a gladiator game, but you got dinosaurs. It's on Kickstarter, and they're,
Did you say Ultimate Dinosaur Fighting?
Yes.
Okay.
It's by an American firm. But yeah, it just looks fun. Mechanics look okay, but it's dinosaurs fighting in the cage bit. What's not to like?
You're right. I'm in love with it.
Yep.
Yeah, I must admit, I was in preparation for this. I went on. I was looking on Tabletop Gaming News and Kickstarter earlier today, and I kind of went, no, there are several things going on at the moment where I just have to. I'm closing that page now. I'm not looking any. I mean, there are 2 or 3 new kind of miniature skirmish games, and of course, yeah, there's that. As I say, there's that new Simon game and various other bits and pieces, and I'm just going, no, step away, stop looking.
I mean, to be honest, now I just want to buy the rule set for this and then scale it up and use the Seraphon dinosaur miniatures.
Oh yeah.
Oh, that'd be brilliant.
Yeah.
On a Warcry board or something. I don't know. It's gone. I don't know. I've gone too far.
Yeah. Oh no, not yet. We just plant the seed.
That's it.
But yeah, that's actually it. That's it for me.
Brilliant. Okay, well, on that note, we'll take a quick break and go and recover from watching dinosaurs pit fighting. And when we come back, it's time to chat about the hobby. Hi everyone, Neil here. I hope you enjoy this episode of the Meeples and Miniatures podcast. If you are, I'm wondering, would you consider becoming a patron of the show? For as little as $1 a month, you can help support us in what we're doing with the show. For that, you can get access to a monthly question and answer show. That will also allow you to ask questions. If you pledge more, you potentially get bonus podcasts. And you never know, you might even get invited to be on the show yourself. If you want to know more details, please follow the link to our Patreon page, which is on the front of the website. That's www.meeplesandminiatures.co.uk. Thanks a lot. Okay, so now it's time to catch up on what we've been gaming and what we've been painting in the last couple of weeks as we look at our hobby section. I'll go first because I'm going to be very, very quick. Right, gaming, not a huge amount. The one thing we have managed to do, got a game of Mansions of Madness 2nd edition in again. Played a scenario we hadn't played before. Because, funnily enough, there are still some of the scenarios that we haven't played yet. And was yet again reminded of just what a good game it is and how much differences you get within the scenarios. And it was really quite interesting because especially, with the whole Stranger Things happening at the moment. No spoiler, yes, spoiler alert, I'm not going to spread too much. I can't remember the name of the scenario we were playing, but it has elements of kind of like this mirror universe within a haunted house, and it was just brilliant. So that was really cool. Still a fantastic game, Mansions of Madness. Love it. Right, okay. Other than that, got in a couple of. Finally got back to a couple of sessions of Gloomhaven. We actually played out one scenario, ended up doing it twice, simply because for the first time in ages we actually failed the scenario. But it's quite an important one because it's at a stage where essentially if you fail it, you are locked into a location because you've gone through a rift in a temple, and you just end up somewhere. And you basically got to fight all these monsters to get out. And we died horribly the first time around we did it. Gloomhaven continues to be a good game. Not my favourite dungeon crawler, but very good. And yeah, I mean, we've played. I mean, I know a lot of people still turn around and they go, "Well, hang on a second, Gloomhaven is massively expensive because it clocks in about 140 quid for the base game." But we've now played it in one campaign, and we're not finished yet. We played it 26 times, and if you imagine that each of those sessions is about 3 hours.
So it passes the cinema test.
Yeah, well, very much so. Yeah, I mean, it's been our go-to dungeon crawler for over a year now. It's got some really nice mechanics in it. Some of the components could be better. And interestingly enough, we were saying that they, having played it so many times, especially some of the decisions like doing things like all the monsters are on cardboard cutouts on standees, and some of them are starting to fray. Yes, basically, the ones that you use more often than others. They're starting to look a little bit worse for wear, which is a bit of a shame. But other than that, no, brilliant game. So that's basically what we've been playing. Not a lot. And then on the painting front, I have kind of broken my painting drought. I made the decision that I was going to do it by painting a couple of full thrust fleets, and I'm almost
going well, is it?
I'm almost there. I just had at the point where I think I made a bad decision about 2/3 of the way through, where I suddenly decided that from an art book and inspiration side of things, even you look at the digital models for Babylon 5. Or you look at what they've done for what they did on the whole of things like the stuff for Star Trek, or if you want an extreme example, look at Chris Foss illustrations. The starship hulls are not one colour, and actually doing the little detail plates that show up on the models slightly different colours look really cool. Which it's a fabulous idea until you actually come to do it and discover it's a real pain in the arse to do it accurately, and you're forever touching up. So I'm thinking, in future, especially on that sort of scale model, if it was a bigger model, I'll probably do it. But on the full thrust scale models, it's more than life's worth. So I think I'll kind of just do colour wash, dry brush, extra dry brush, and just kind of leave them, and then just put the odd marking on it as opposed to trying to put too much detail.
I think sometimes if you keep the details simple, it actually has a more profound effect.
Yeah.
I've been finding recently that picking out, particularly if it's your spot color, on a fairly limited palette, just doing that alone really it pops the model, rather than, I don't know, like that level of detail. You're like me in that sense. I'll get really super into that, and then I'll become quite pedantic about it. And then when I look at the output versus the time invested, it's a bit. You do have to sort of have a word with yourself, don't you?
You do. And let's face it. The last and then I have been beating myself up because I haven't felt like doing much hobby in the last few days. But let's face it. It's not been particularly conducive to painting in the last few days.
No, that wet palette is not staying wet, is it? So, apart from all the human sweat. So,
oh, yeah. What medium are you using? Let's not go there. Right. Okay. So that's me. So, despite the fact it's only 16 ships, I haven't actually finished them yet. Despite the fact, and they've been on the hobby table for a week or so. But I just can't compete with the Hobbs output. I half paint 2 small fleets. He paints an entire Space Marine Legion. I mean, what can you do?
It's not entire. It's just bits of it.
Yeah. Okay. So that's me.
How are you, Alex?
Hobby-wise, I have been tinkering with, I think I mentioned it earlier, my Iron World Arsenal army, which I'll be taking to Raw in Cambridge this October, and it's very conversion heavy. So I had to have a word with myself when I started this project that if I didn't, it was only going to be worth it if I did little and often and chipped away at it constantly, because it's quite labour intensive.
Yeah.
So I'm just trying to stick with that mantra. Otherwise, I'll have the usual 1 week before the tournament panic, and then it won't be to the standard or the quality that I want. And the whole point of the tournament is about the quality of the armies on show and the modelling. That's very much the kind of raison d'etre of the event. So I've just been trying to make sure I stay on top of that. So I've recently finished a walking steam tank. I'm converting a Hurricane to be walking on tripod legs, and creating my own versions of human casters to go with that have got bits of AdMech kit in them and things as well, so they all look a bit clockworky or a bit cybernetic, and it's quite labour intensive. It's so much fun, it's so absorbing, but I'm just trying to make sure I carry on with that. So yeah, that's been my main hobby outlet recently.
Cool. Are you on schedule?
Yeah, I think so. For once in my life. It's only a 1,500 point. Saying that, we do have to build a Regiment of Renown, which is really cool, and I haven't started that yet. So the Regiment of Renown is going to be a bunch of independent characters that we've created. And I had an idea of using some spare Necromunda heads that have got a kind of almost like a telescopic gas mask on it, and putting that on a cloak's body. I want to see if you know where I'm going with this. And then having a Kurnoth Hunter in there, and then having a witch elf with green skin, and then converting a Skaven rat model to look a little bit like a raccoon, and then getting an ogre and maybe sort of doing some green stuff with the skin, so he's got a bit more of kind of a scarred grey look to him. No, that's the Kurnoth Hunter.
Sorry.
So that's a Sylvaneth range model.
Yeah.
And I thought I could call them Guardian. What was it? Guardians of Galaxy, as in Akshi, but
Yes.
Galaxy. So I've just been kind of specking some of that up on the internet and seeing what parts and bits I'd need. So yeah, that might be quite good fun.
Cool. Okay, stupid question time. Are you, in these conversions, are you limited to the manufacturer that you can use?
No, because it's an independent tournament, right?
Okay.
So it's fine. So I'm not. The only reason I tend to stick with GW for heavy conversion work is because of the quality of the plastic. It just very genuinely makes the conversion work easier.
Yeah. Because
it's less cutting and the material is a bit easier to work with. But you're not duty bound to be GW only, and I am looking at other manufacturers as well to see what I can find. So
cool.
Yeah. Have a little look at West Wind. They do a steampunk conversion sets.
Ooh.
Yeah, because they have a very nice steampunk range called for a game called Empire of the Dead. And
okay, you said that was West Wing.
West Wind Productions.
Oh, West Wind.
Wind Productions.
It's sort of Victorian styly thing, but you can get all sorts of stuff in there. I particularly like the policeman, a big steam walker policeman. It was a fantastic model.
Oh yeah. Wow!
Sorry,
okay.
Sorry, we may just have cost you perhaps a little bit more money. Maybe.
Yeah, this might have been. Oh god, yeah, I found my I've forgotten his name now. The raccoon out of Guardians of the Galaxy. What's his name again? Rocket. Yeah, I think I found my Rocket. So yeah,
excellent stuff. Yes,
it's gone well.
Yeah, they have quite an extensive range, which is very nice indeed.
Indeed.
Yes, and if you don't find something there, aren't North Star currently Don't they currently have the In Her Majesty's Name figure sets in their bargain basement? I know they had a couple of weeks ago because they were looking
Possibly, yeah. And I think they just come out with a new range for the latest Osprey.
Yeah.
Oh wow, okay.
But the In Her Majesty's Name miniatures again. That is kind of a steampunk warband sort of game. That might have some miniatures you might be interested in.
I will definitely check all of that out. So my fiance's just walked in and saw me looking at a miniatures website and immediately sat down to find out what I was doing. But no, I will definitely check that out. Thanks. I appreciate that. It's a great shout.
Yeah.
Cool. Excellent stuff. Right, okay. Have you finished with your hobby stuff, Alex? Can we move on to Mr. Hobbs, or is there anything else you've been up to?
You absolutely can. I did that thing where I was waiting for you to steer, and so I didn't say anything. So yeah, sorry, Mr. Hobbs, please do continue.
It was beautifully done. Beautifully done, sir. Well, I've covered sort of what I've been painting earlier on, which is just lots and lots of Vanguard stuff and Titans and things. Gaming, right. I went over to the forest to see Mr. Slade, and we played Apocalypse using 6mm stuff. He had his Chaos, and I had my Dark Angels. You got to use Dark Angels.
Of course. So the first question is, did your idea of using 6mm for Apocalypse actually work?
Yeah. There's a few things you've got to do. I mean, with Apocalypse, because it's aimed for using the standard size 40k. You can get a lot more variation in the type of weaponry, and it's a lot easier to see that sort of weaponry on a 28mm figure than a 6mm figure. So we sort of said we need a way to sort of mark what each unit is armed with. But as a game, it worked really well. That was using lots of psionic stuff, and because that's all in the cards. You get like a card deck that you pull cards out of, and they become resources that you can play during your turn, so forth. But yeah, it was a quick, dirty, clean, fun game, and we could see how it worked really well. Sort of scaled up to the correct scale. But yeah, we had a blast. So we're talking about getting together and doing a big 40k scale Apocalypse, because I've got my Dark Angels and my Chaos Renegades, which I really want to play. And I've also got, I did build the Bane Blades Hellhammer about 10 years ago, which I've never used. And I really want to use it on the table.
That is a significant sized model to just have laying around as well.
Have you still got your Warhound?
No, I got rid of that. I sold it off.
Oh.
But, I've got enough other stuff. Yeah, so we're thinking about doing that. So that was good. We got a game of Journeys last couple of days ago, which was fun. It still doesn't feel like Lord of the Rings, but it was a great game. And then I got invited to take part in a Dirk the Dice exclusive run scenario of Blake 7, the role-playing game, where I played Jenna, and we had great fun.
Okay, now you're just going to have Mr. Hitman envy.
Hey-ho. It was, it had everything. We ended up teleporting down to what appeared to be a quarry. We blew the budget by having far too many extras getting shot. It was good. We ran into a complex which might have been a nuclear shelter or a nuclear power plant.
Alternatively, it could have been some sort of power station somewhere.
Some sort of power station somewhere, yeah. And we obviously had Gan, who didn't take part in the scenario because he didn't have any lines to say. But that was great because I was in role playing Glitterati with Dirk being the GM, and Blythe was there playing Avon, and Dr. Crowley was there, and fantastic. I was humbled I was, Neil. Unfortunately, I apparently shot the wrong person. I shot the person we were trying to rescue.
That was humbling.
Yeah, I only shot him a bit.
Hang on. You shot somebody you weren't supposed to.
He looked like Travis.
You shock me.
He was dressed up as Travis, the big villain, so I shot him. And then we found out it wasn't Travis. But no spoilers here.
I see. So yet again, the Hobbs of shoot first, ask questions later, even if it's a fellow party member, comes to the fore.
If I remember rightly, in the last role-playing game we had, you shot me.
Yeah, it has to be said there was a certain amount of meta going on there.
I call it revenge. You wait till the end and shot me as well.
Well, let's face it. We were in we were in the Arctic, so revenge was served cold.
Yeah. Never play Cthulhu with Neil, Alex. That's what I'll say. Takes any opportunity to shoot you.
Brilliant.
But yeah, that's it really.
Cool, and obviously we talked about the fact that you amongst us are the one that's been using contrast paints.
Well, yeah, I've been used on 6mm figures, and it worked great for those. So yeah, it's odd because I'm doing my Space Wolves in the classic style of 3 shades in the wash. But it's one of those paints that it has a use.
Yeah. It's
not going to completely replace everything, but as a nice effect, they're good products. I bought 3 colours, and that's probably enough. In fact, I bought 2 colours because Firestorm gave me one because they had some which were misprinted. So.
Oh, okay. Oh, that's cool.
Yeah,
that's fair. I completely agree. I think it's a toolbox item, isn't it? I don't think it was ever going to replace paint. Well, I say replace painting. I don't mean it that way. I'm not trying to sound gatekeepery or snobby, but it's a high pigment wash, and as a product, there have been other products available before contrast, but at the same time, I'm probably willing to bet that contrast is going to have a certain level of quality about it, because Citadel paint tends to have a certain quality about it.
Well, as long as the lids work, yeah.
Yeah, right. I mean, the pots are terrible, but the paint itself's fine. So, yeah, I think I completely agree, and particularly for 6mm as well, because you actually probably want to do it relatively quickly as well, and there's only so much detail you're going to pull out, right? So
yeah, exactly. I mean, when I did my Thousand Suns, I tried 3 different color schemes, and they all ended up looking exactly the same, but one of them took 3 times as long as the other one. So I thought, well, let's just go with the other one.
Time versus output. Yeah, definitely. Yeah, 100%. I'm on board with that. Cool.
There we go. So, time for a quick break, and then when we come back, we can, talk about why Alex is actually here.
I forgot there was a reason I'm here.
I was going to say, I'm sure he's actually wondering, why on earth am I chatting to these 2 idiots? We'll find out shortly. The Meeples and Miniatures podcast is proud to be sponsored by Firestorm Games. Whether you need wargames rules, miniatures, paints, hobby accessories, scenery, board games, card games, all your role-playing needs, and even toys and collectibles, Firestorm Games is your store of choice. Check them out at www.firestormgames.co.uk. or at their stores located in Cardiff, Newport and Swindon. Don't forget, if you use the code SUMMERYMeeple, that's SUMMERYMEEPLE, all lowercase, you will get an extra discount on your order. Firestorm Games, for all your hobby goodness. So then, Mr. Ley, if you've forgotten the main reason why you're here, there was an event, it actually happened a couple of week last Saturday?
No, it was the week before that.
Week before that,
the
okay.
Saturday the 13th of July.
Yeah, an event which Alex organised, which took place at Magic Madhouse London.
That's the one.
Sorry,
that's the one.
It had gone. Right, okay. Which took place at Magic Madhouse London, and we wanted to have a chat with Alex all about the event and what inspired him to do it and what have you. So, Alex, can you tell us kind of what your thinking was about the whole event and whose idea it was and how that came about?
The event originally was myself and a gentleman called Steve Foote, who you may have seen has done loads of the mad, really cool stuff that we did on the day on Twitter. And we were talking with my other friend Ming Lee, about doing a narrative Age of Sigmar showcase event, right? So the original point of the event was we wanted to get some of the best narrative players from the country, get them together in a room and just do like a really cool showcase event of what narrative could all be about. The conversation then very quickly progressed onto, well, if we're going to do this, we shouldn't just do it for fun. Let's do it for a good cause, right? I think we can probably all agree that mental health, quite rightly, is now getting the press and the attention that it absolutely thoroughly deserves. Because I think for me, it's always been, I like to think, common sense that looking after your mental health should be as much of a priority for you as looking after your physical health, right? And I have always believed that gaming, and I know that I'm a kind of GW specific gamer and that sits a certain type maybe, but I think gaming as a whole, I think the reason we do that is because it's social. Yeah. I imagine you agree with me there, gents. Yeah.
Yeah.
And that, and having a community is not something that everybody actually has access to, and have particularly now, I think in the modern world, the what I think what our grandparents' idea of what the community would be certainly has changed, right? So gaming for me represents having access to a support network of friends pretty much wherever I go in the world, because I will always have a means of making friends and a means of socializing and having an escapist outlet from the kind of stresses of work and everyday life. And this is something that we've all, as a group, agreed on, is a huge thing that we need to celebrate within our community. So it just became a natural progression to want to do this for Mind. And for those listeners who don't know much about Mind, I think Mind are fairly well publicized, but Mind are a mental health charity. And their raison d'etre is to find people who are suffering with mental health issues, possibly even undiagnosed, to find the treatment and support that they need. And they'll even go as far as helping you to lobby to get the treatment that you need if you're suffering at the hands of the mental health postcode lottery, which has been in the press quite a lot. You know, how some regions across the country are better, their NHS trusts are better at dealing with certain issues than others. Yeah. And we just felt that we wanted to raise this money for them and to do as much good as we can off the back of the event for that kind of cause. So that's where the entire inspiration for this came from. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, it's a great thing. I mean, because well, I mean, we've spoken. Me and Neil have both spoken about mental health issues in the past because we both suffer from anxiety and depression and stuff like that.
Okay.
The hobby does help.
Yeah.
And we did a whole show on basically if you do suffer from symptoms, what you need to do to get help. And Mind do such good work in the community. I'm very friendly with somebody who is part of Mind, and they did unfortunately close down their local centre, and he basically still, but he still brings people over to his sort of once a week or so, and they play games. It just helps, and it's stuff like that that just helps people. So the more we can talk about it, the more we can point people towards destigmatizing it.
Exactly. And I think if I don't want to put words in anybody's mouth because mental health is a very personal experience, but I think anything that we do to encourage a community where you create, where hopefully you make friends and friends look out for you, but also at the same time, we don't just stand at the opposite ends of a table playing a game and talk exclusively about the game. We'll also bond and talk about other things. And if we're creating awareness around noticing, the symptoms of somebody who might be suffering from anxiety, who might be showing the early signs of needing some support, possibly at the onset of some depression on that huge scale that depression exists on, and that's a huge spectrum. You're also doing good for that person as well by having that awareness, and as you said, by removing that stigma and encouraging people to talk and to say, "I'm not okay," at the right time. And it's a subject that's deeply close to our hearts. I can personally say I'm perfectly open about this. I've never been formally diagnosed with a mental health issue. I do believe that throughout my life I've had bouts of anxiety, etc. I think that's probably quite normal for most people to have experienced it on the level that I have. But I know that for people that were joining us on the day, and certainly people that have donated to us, or to Mind, vicariously through the event, they absolutely agreed with exactly like you just said, Mr. Hobbs, that having this support network has been a huge deal to them. And I think those people then go one step further to really actively look if members of their own community are suffering and may need help and signposting. So it was we just felt it was the most fitting cause. And I'm really pleased to say as well that we did end up, currently we've raised over £1,500 off the back of this event. And we did have a prize giveaway as well, which, was all donated prizes to us. We've not had to pay out any money or anything to achieve that. And we even had some Games Workshop employees interact with us and support us and give a shout out. And you may have seen that. Did you first get onto the event when Gav Thorpe gave us a retweet? Did I get that timeline correct?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, because we both know Gav. Oh, well, we know him quite well. We chat a lot on Twitter. We met him a few times.
Yeah. He's a great guy, right?
He is. Absolute star of a bloke.
And I was blown away when we got the retweet from Gav Thorpe, because he's been a hero of mine since I was a kid, particularly with all the work that he's done in the Warhammer fiction. And I think it was just, I think what humbled me the most was just realizing that actually that this is a real force for good that we can do, and we were promoting something that was potentially very meaningful. So yeah, it was a huge thing for us. I guess I haven't really spoken about what the format of the event actually was. I've spoken about the cause. So shall I go on to give a bit more detail about what we actually did on the day, or?
Yeah, please. Well, I mean, first off, you mentioned we want to talk about narrative play in Age of Sigmar. As people who know almost nothing about Age of Sigmar, or very little. What's the difference?
So the whole point of narrative play for me is, and as I guess this is how GW put it and how we interpret it. So the GW have got this new thing about there being 3 ways to play any of their 2 main gaming systems, and that's your competitive, out the box, points matched play stuff, and then there's the narrative element, which is all about the storytelling. And realistically, what you're trying to achieve in a narrative game is not having a winner and a loser, although ultimately I guess the story will possibly dictate that happens. What you're trying to achieve is an epic tale. You're trying to possibly recreate something, or what we love to do. We love to have games where we've all got a loose narrative and maybe an objective that we're trying to achieve throughout the day. And actually, as the dice are rolled and certain things happen on the battlefield, we may make conscious decisions to move miniatures or to get miniatures to interact with other miniatures, my opponents at miniatures in a certain way, because it's telling an epic tale and a narrative. And that doesn't mean we haven't got a competitive game going on, because you are ultimately trying to achieve an objective, but it's about the journey rather than the outcome. And for me, ever since I was a kid, and I alluded it back to when I was doing my intro with you guys, it was that element of wargaming that always drew me in. It was that element of, you've got that hero that's trying to fight against all the odds, or you've got the nefarious bad guy that needs to try and get that lost, I don't know, bit of special magic crystal or something to complete their war machine and unleash chaos. And you might have someone who's allied to that nefarious bad guy that suddenly has a change of heart, a bit like a Darth Vader versus the Emperor kind of dramatic trope, right? Where all of a sudden they turn on their overlord because they've hit a threshold of morality where they can't go any further. And it's that we as a narrative gaming group enjoy encapsulating. We're not all about I've got 2,000 points, you've got 2,000 points, I've done the thing, I've now won, let's pack away and have a beer. We're about telling those stories. So that's what Mind Over the Realms was all about. It was about having an event based around that style of gaming that ultimately was aiming to fundraise for a very good cause.
Sounds cool. So when you say that the story gets pushed on, so does that mean that when you start a game, you sort of give objectives to the players to say, like, this is what's pushing you in this scenario. So this is your key objectives to do. And if if this point happens, let us know and we'll tell you what might happen to your army. Is it that sort of level, or is it sort of more free flow?
No, I think that's a really succinct way of putting it, actually, my learned friend. What we would do, what we would do,
Mike, it's okay.
What we would do is have a team huddle. When I first wrote I don't know how to put it, like the description for the event, if you like, which was ultimately to go on our Just Giving page, and any kind of fluff that we wrote about the event, we wanted to call ourselves a cast of players as opposed to the competitors or whatever kind of semantics you'd use. And the whole point of that was that we wanted to work together to create the best story. And the way we did that was exactly like you said. I'd have a loose objective that I would be trying to achieve. I'd also have 3 sentences written down, normally a virtue, a vice, and a motivation for my general. And a little bit like if you're doing an RPG, you'd have your player thoughts and your player conversations, but then you'd have your character thoughts and your character conversations. So we were always trying to do what we think our general would do. And it's like you said, if my general managed to close that realm gate on the other side of the board, or if my general managed to assassinate an enemy general, then that would affect where that player would go on the next in the next round, who they would be fighting. We'd even have some games where generals would meet in the middle, and rather than actually fight them, we may even try and RP a little bit of a parlay. So I think a good example of that was I've got a load of Kharadron Overlords and Fire Slayers that I've used as kind of, they're not in line with the rest of Order. They have a bit of an issue with Sigmar, who, for those of your listeners who don't know much about Age of Sigmar, Sigmar's kind of the overarching emperor style god of the universe, and they've kind of misaligned themselves against him and declared themselves as this kind of independent organization, and they're not aligned to chaos. They're not necessarily intrinsically evil, but they're just they don't conform. They're quite anarchic. So my guys were doing a deal with a load of orcs in the middle of one table to try and throw gold at them, to try, because every player would have some currency as well. So they was throwing gold at these orcs to try and get them to come and fight for him and join the cause. And then my one of the other members of the cast, Matt Hinton, he's a really, really prolific GM, done a lot of work with running Dungeons and Dragons events in the US. And he came onto my table with 3 wizards, and one of the wizards had a transmutation spell. And that transmutation spell quite literally turned one of my Kharadron Overlord's warships into a giant piece of gold, and it just fell out of the sky and landed in the middle of the battlefield. And that wizard then shouted over to those orcs, "Don't worry about whatever he's paying you. That big lump of gold is all yours if you turn on him immediately." And then that story immediately free flowed. So those orcs started coming in from every angle. We got them coming in on other areas of the table. Then it was all about me being in flight and being in retreat, having not recruited that player to the cause. So it's a little bit of column A, a little bit of column B. It's a little bit of free flow, but it's also a little bit of loose planning at the same time. And it's really cool. It's so engaging and it's so much fun. And if you are a little bit fed up with being shot by your mate who's being a bit meta, if you know what I'm saying, and you just want to relax and kick back and just have some real kind of fun with it, that's what narrative's all about.
It sounds brilliant. I mean, I think maybe it's an age thing because I'm slightly older, but I always sort of look at tournaments and events, and especially sort of 40k runs or any of the GW ones, as being hyper meta, where you know, and it's very cutthroat and people just want to win and they don't care how they do it. But to hear that there's this other side of the GW hobby that I never knew about, and I think there's probably a lot of our listeners who probably kind of go, that sort of idea, would work in any sort of situation. You could take an historical game.
Of course you could. Absolutely.
Yeah, and just use that for telling a story. And I love the idea of having these stories happening, because it's something I try to do in a lot of games. Whenever I sort of put on a game, I'm sort of well known for turning up with envelopes full of weird orders that I give to people during the game, or giving them backstories and things like that, just to mess around a bit.
Yeah,
so
absolutely.
It does sound really interesting, and it's going for a great cause, which is even better.
Yeah, exactly. And we didn't want to just do that day's worth. We could have just done that day's worth of game. I mean, I'm not trying to get backslappy about it, but I guess we could have just done that day's worth of gaming and not pushed it the extra mile. And I'm just so glad we did. And it wasn't all down to me, of course. Like, every single one of the players contributed. I mean, like Steve in particular was kicking out all of the because he's he works a lot with 3D printing and graphic design for work. So he was kicking out all of the banners and the images and things we needed to promote the event. He also created the warp wheel. If anybody, I'm not going to go too much into it because I guess we're a little bit time limited and I could talk about this all day. But if you go on Twitter and type in hashtag MindOmer, which is MINDOMR, that will bring up all of our tweets and things that we did both on the day and in the build up, and you'll see Steve's warp wheel, which is a huge custom built Skaven Doom wheel that actually was so big it had decks inside of it that we could live play games in it as well, as our heroes tried to break into it and bring it down. And the whole point of the day was Steve's warlock engineer trying to get the final parts to make the warp wheel come to life and unleash it on the realms, and my dwarves are trying to help him do that. And it just adds so much more flavor and character. And Steve in particular is, and I do this as well, I'm a bit of a fiend for turning up to narrative events, having written my own war scrolls for my own models that I've made up, because why not?
Yeah.
Like, why not? Like, GW make beautiful range of models, we all know that, but they haven't come up with everything. They haven't, and they certainly haven't canonized everything that exists within their fiction in the form of a model. So if I pick out a line of text from a battle tome or a book that I particularly love and I want to create that, then let's do it. Let's just do it. What's stopping us? And yeah, I love it. It's great. And to do it for Mind as well. Mind were incredibly supportive. They contacted us towards the day itself and sent us a load of T-shirts. And a couple of their members of staff actually happened to be from their Stratford office, happened to be in Magic Madhouse playing the new Game of Thrones card game that I can't remember the name of. You may know more than me. And they threw their weight behind it as well, and got us up on Facebook and stuff like that. So it was just celebrating everything that makes hobby brilliant, and as well as, trying to put the word out there for such a great cause.
Cool, because it was live streamed on Magic Madness's Twitch channel, wasn't it?
It was, yeah, it was. And I have to admit, we took loads of lessons learned away from that as well, because it wasn't, the stream was great because Tim Willoughby, who runs Magic Madhouse London, he's actually an employee for Wizards of the Coast, and he, as well as owning the Magic Madhouse London business with his partner Gav, business partner Gav, I should say, he travels the world with Wizards of the Coast for their Magic the Gathering tournament live streams. He's actually just recently come back from being in Italy with Becca Scott, which is quite cool, given that she's now part of the GW pantheon as well. And to have Tim on board with it was fantastic. So he basically role played. Do you remember? Did you ever play Blood Bowl, guys? Do you remember Cabal Vision? Right. He basically made up an Age of Sigmar version of Cabal Vision and role played a wizard that had been bitten by a vampire and therefore was useless to the Collegiate Arcanum because he couldn't go out in the sun. So it was his job to just sit in this room and run the Collegiate Arcane network, which was their Cabal Vision network. And the story started with their emergency broadcast system kicking in. So, I mentioned about those wizards that had the transmutation spell that turned one of my ships into gold. They were from the network. They were from the channel. And we wanted to live stream it because we wanted to try and prove to ourselves if Warhammer narrative games could be packaged on a live stream in the same way that competitive games are. I think it works. I don't know if you managed to catch any of the stream.
I was going to say, I didn't manage to catch any of the stream at the time.
Yeah.
Do they do that? I know some people do, some people don't. Do they subsequently put their streams onto other hosting services? Like, would it be available on YouTube at some point? Oh, it's on YouTube.
It is available. It's all available on YouTube. Thank you, because I would not have mentioned that, and that would have been a wasted opportunity. So yes, it is on YouTube. Magic Madhouse London would have uploaded those videos to YouTube for everyone to watch retrospectively. If I'm going to be deadly honest, if you've only got time to check out one of those videos, check out the final game, because I think we'd refined the stream a little bit better by that point. So Tim actually came to the table side with a camera and a microphone, and was doing more on the spot live commentary, and then getting interviews from the players as things was happening, which I think was the right way to do it. In the first game, we didn't do that, and the feedback we got was that it didn't work quite as well. So if you're going to watch one of the pre-recorded ones, jump straight in at the end, catch the final game where the warp wheel is on display in all its glory, and you can see my Kharadron Overlords failing to hit anything as they normally do. And the best thing about narrative gamers as well, to a large extent, is that they're all about the modelling and the painting as well. So there's lots of really beautiful armies on display as well.
Superb. So how many players did you have in this event?
We had, good question. It was, I want to say 10 of us. I think it was 12 originally, and then unfortunately a couple of guys for very legitimate reasons couldn't make it. So it was 10 of us playing, plus Tim, who we still count as one of the theatre company. So there were 11 players in the company, but 10 actual gaming players, as it were. So yeah.
Great. I mean, that's a great amount of money to make, as well for that sort of.
Oh, it exceeded all our expectations. We've been really humbled, and we feel quite privileged to have attracted so much support. So if you are listening, and you were one of those who supported us, then honestly, thank you so much. I know it's all about, at the end of the day, it's about the good work that mine do, but also it was a great acknowledgement for us as well that people out there are really engaged with the idea that our community is a force for good. And I think we took a very really sort of heartwarming message from that as well.
Yeah, I mean, just as a quick question, is that Just Giving page still open?
It is, yes. So as far as I'm aware, because I've not been asked whether I want to close it, so I'm just leaving it open because why not?
Yeah.
So it's www.justgiving.com/fundraising/Alex-Ley, which is Lima Echo Yankee 2 as in the number 2.
Yep.
And that's absolutely still open and ready to receive. I will just caveat that with, we have now done the prize draw. So the prize draw is closed. So please do donate. Absolutely. It's all for a brilliant cause. Please do go and watch the videos. But please don't donate under the pretense that you'll be eligible for the prize draw, because that has now been closed, and all of the lucky winners have received their prizes.
Cool.
Mm-hmm.
So I suppose the question comes out of that. So, sounds like had a great time doing it. Is it something you consider doing again?
Definitely. We all walked away from that event already talking about when we can do it next. I think I need to be realistic with myself about, as I may have mentioned, I'm planning a wedding. So I've got to be a little bit realistic about myself, about my own personal amount of time available. But
I was going to say, you might find yourself slightly distracted. Yes.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. But that being said as well, there was 10 amazing players there. Everyone pitched in. So actually, I'll be honest, it wasn't, I think the workload was nice and evenly spread. So there's absolutely no reason to do this again. But I think there's two challenges as well. One, we want to raise more money because, of course, we want to raise more money. It's such a good cause, and I'm very deserving of that effort and time. But actually, the other challenge is we want to kind of get this stream going. So actually, it's more interactive and it's more about the viewer participation. And I even, slightly ambitiously as well, was thinking, could we do this in such a way that it's a bit like, there was an event run a few years ago that I now can't remember the name of, but the idea was it was a national campaign.
Yeah.
And I was sitting there thinking, could we get more people involved in other venues in the country, even the world? Anybody who wants to join in. So on that note, if you are listening and you think this is the kind of thing you'd love to get involved in, my Twitter handle is Alex Ley 0910. So that's ALEXLEY 0910. If you are from somewhere else in the country, so we're London based, but if you're maybe up north or even somewhere else in the world, and you're thinking maybe next July time that you'd like to get involved and see if you can help us raise even more money and run a sidebar event in sync with us, then get in contact with me. It'd be really, really great to hear your ideas.
Cool. Excellent stuff. Just from an organisational point of view, I mean, I know you mentioned you had people coming in from various different places, but
yeah.
Was it a case of essentially this, the core was a group of local players getting together and then other people getting involved?
Not strictly speaking, no. So Steve Foote is Oxfordshire based and he's one of the Oxford gamers. Weirdly, I was talking about the event Raw that I'm going to, where I'm building that iWorld Arsenal army. A lot of the players are actually the tournament organisers for Raw.
Okay.
So Steve, the tournament organisers for Raw are a gaming group, if you like, called Eat Ming's Foot, which is a couple of members of the Eat Bats group in Cambridge, Ming Lee himself, who was also playing, and Mr. Steve Foote, so hence Eat Ming's Foot. And we had the majority of those guys there. And then we had some other guys across from Oxford, as well as some other members of my gaming group, which is the Angel Wargamers. So it was national, but it was also a little bit within our own network from events that we've been to and things.
Yeah.
And I think that's where the challenge is now, to like kind of open the doors and to try and get other groups involved, or people possibly that we've never even met before and stuff like that. Because we're talking about promoting community, so the last thing we want to do is make the event itself a clique, right? Because that just wouldn't work. So I think that's definitely the next step, is to like I said, how we could make it more increase the participation.
It all sounds for the good.
Yeah, I hope so. Yeah. But as I said, we're very humbled by the amount of support that we've got. So thank you to everybody who's backed us. It's been phenomenal.
No, that sounds really cool, Alex. I mean, as I say, congratulations for being on board and organising that event.
Thank you.
It is brilliant to see that sort of thing going on, and
thank you.
If that if that acts as an inspiration, hopefully that will act as an inspiration for more people to get involved and do similar sort of things for whatever charity or charitable cause is close to your heart. People are always looking for innovative ways of fundraising and appealing to different communities. So if this helps light the way for a new avenue of this, and for people to get involved in this sort of community support, then brilliant, fantastic stuff. More power to you, mate. Well done.
Yeah. Thank you very much. Thank you. And as I said, if anybody wants to come forward and contact me about next year, or with their own ideas or whatever, or if anybody's thinking of doing this and they want a little bit of advice or whatever, then please just drop me a note on Twitter and I'll gladly come back to you.
Cool, great stuff. On that note, what we'll do, we'll take one last break, and then it's time to find out what Dave's bought this week. So as you come to the end of the show, it's time to find out what Dave's bought this week. And me, as well as everybody else, would really like to know, Dave, what have you been up to?
He's hidden away again, isn't he?
He's hidden away, and this week he's not even bothered to confess to me. Allegedly, the reason is he's actually taken 3 days off and gone out of the house.
What, Dave?
Yeah.
Do people go out the house?
He's gone out in the sunshine.
No. I remind you, I'm ginger, so
yeah.
No. I've heard people do that. I've never seen it.
Yeah, so. Yeah. I mean, this is a newfangled idea, but yes, apparently he has gone back to the county of his birth.
Hobbiton.
There is, I mean, obviously they're not currently available, but kudos has to go out to Mr. Plowman yet again for getting on board with the Dave Temptations by sending him that wonderful picture of the next. It's Atlantis. Is it Atlantis Miniatures or Atlantic?
Yeah, Atlantic.
Atlantic Miniatures next box set.
Oh, they've got a beautiful griffin, haven't they? Atlantic Miniatures. Have you seen it?
Yeah.
Yeah. Sorry, I digress. That reminded me from Salute. Yeah, it's amazing.
Oh,
Great
that's
products.
Atlantis.
Yeah.
Not Atlantis. There's the ones that do the resin, really expensive but beautiful resin.
Yeah, that's what I'm talking about. I think they've done a bit. I might have got that wrong. Sorry, ignore me. Carry on.
And then there's the ones that do the plastics, which are the War Games Atlantic.
Right. So they have just done a set of Greek-inspired skeletons. So
yeah, that's War Game Atlantic.
That's War Game Atlantic.
okay.
Right, okay. And they've just announced their next box set is going to be Halflings.
Oh, there's Andy. Especially as the Scouring of the Shire books are due out any time now. So.
Shocking indeed, horror. I mean, who'd have thunk? You know. So thank you to Mr. Plowman for doing our job for us. I can neither confirm or deny what Dave has done because he's basically not talked to me this week. So we shall have to await the next episode with bated breath. Although I do know he also happened to back at the field.
Yeah. He's probably still unpacking that massive great box of what did he get last time? That huge box.
Oh, Joan of Arc.
Joan of Arc, yeah, he's probably still face down in that lot.
Well, I thought it was a bit brave of him disappearing for a few days when the second shipment's due. I mean, who knows where that might end up? But yes, it was. Talking of which, I think we explained on Twitter when at the point where I correctly identified what had arrived on your doorstep this week by the simple fact I turned around and went, "That bubble wrap looks French." Yes. It's just that a particular distribution company happened to pack stuff in a particular way, and I kind of went, "Oh, I recognise that packaging." But there we go.
I mean, you both bought far too much from that particular distribution company
and that particular Kickstarter. Indeed. Yes. Okay. Anyway, moving swiftly on. Right.
Yeah. Oh, which reminds you, I did actually mention that in my confessional. So back to the confessional.
Yes.
Mythic Battles 1.5 arrived.
Did it really? You shocked me.
Yeah. No, it's arrived. Yeah.
Okay, so as I said, so from somebody who is thinking that he's now of the 900, who's having to wait for other stuff to be reprinted, because that would just be me. What's in it?
I don't know. I haven't opened it yet. There's an upgrade pack, which is still in the cellophane, which includes lots of cards.
Oh yeah, because that's all the cards and all the new and all the because they've redone a load of the stats and everything, haven't they? They've redone a load of the monsters. Yeah. So it's going to take a while to go through it, dig out the Pandora's box of all the rest of the stuff and sort it out. And a couple of miniatures and some dice and some stuff. But I haven't gone through it. And while we're on happen to be on that subject, as a last thing of shiny, something I spotted on this week. There was a shout out went on the Mortal Gods Facebook page this week from Mr. Hobday, asking for people to come along to a playtesting session of Mortal Gods Mythic.
Oh dear.
Yes. So it's I'm not quite sure when it's planned. I think it's kind of it's I think it's early autumn, but it's definitely on its way. Which was obviously something that there are more than a couple of us who are kind of interested in, considering the models we've got. It will be interesting to know how they're going to do it.
I think we have to go along.
Even if you don't get a game, just to kind of want, just to kind of gate crash. Yeah, because I think it's due to happen at. I think it's due to happen at Boards and Swords in Derby, and I don't know. We might know the owners. So we might have to put in a word.
Okay.
Are you listening, Ian? I hope you are. Okay. We might, we might just turn up on the day and gate crash. Okay. Right.
Yeah.
Right. Cool. So I think we're about done.
Yeah.
Cool. So done. You certainly have been. All that remains to be said is, first and foremost, a huge thank you to our guest, Alex Ley, for giving up his evening in order to chat to us. Thank you, Alex. It's been fantastic to chat. Really enjoyed it, mate.
Thank you. Thank you. No, thanks for having me on. It's been great to come on and speak to you guys, and pleasure's all mine, basically. Thank you. So...
Brilliant stuff. Yeah, and thank you for sharing your hobby with us and very busy. No, it's just been great to chat. So really appreciate that. And
that's the whole point of the community piece, right? Neil and Mike, is that well, I've never met you guys, but we've managed to sit here for nigh over 3 hours chatting away about games and stuff, and that's the point of that kind of cohesion that you get, right? So yeah, I think it's a testament to the hobby and to what we do. So yeah, thanks again.
No, that's brilliant. Thanks, mate. Much appreciated. Yeah. So, thank you to Alex, and thank you once again to the Welsh Wizard.
Thank you, Neil. Thank you for the invite. It's always nice to be here. I keep saying that. I've been here for 6 years.
Yeah, you keep coming back. I just can't get rid of you. I don't
know. You still on that? You still on that? You still on that trial run, Mike? Yeah.
Yeah, on that probation.
And finally, just a thank you to everyone for listening. I hope you've enjoyed it. I hope you found it interesting and informative. Obviously, if anything's come up from the show that you want to talk about or discuss further, contact us accordingly. And until next time, happy gaming, and we'll speak to you in a couple of weeks.
Happy gaming. Take care. Bye-bye.
Thank you for listening to the Meeples and Miniatures podcast. If you've enjoyed the show, why not share it with others by leaving us a review on iTunes? And if you have any comments or questions, you can always email the show. The address is info@meeplesandminiatures.co.uk. And you can also visit our webpage, where you'll find a complete episode archive, all the View from the Veranda podcasts, rules reviews, and our blog of hobby items and news, which is updated several times a week. This is also where you'll find the links to our presence on social media, and here you can follow us on Twitter or join our Facebook group. And finally, here you can also find details should you wish to support us by making a donation to the podcast. All this on the Meeples and Miniatures website, www.meeplesandminiatures.co.uk. The Meeples and Miniatures podcast is licensed under a Creative Commons Attribution, Non-Commercial, No Derivatives 3.0 Unported license. Thanks again for listening, and we'll see you in a couple of weeks.